Shabbat Shalom. This week's parsha is Parshat Yitro. Parshat Yitro contains within it probably the greatest parsha in the world. It is the parsha of the Ten Commandments. The story of the Ten Commandments, God's revelation to the Jewish people on Mount Sinai, is a unique experience in the history of the world, in the history of humanity. It is the only documented case of a divine revelation to an entire nation. It is therefore so important to understand and learn about the Ten Commandments. For the Ten Commandments are not just Ten Commandments, but they are the chapter headings of the entire system that we call Judaism. And when we look at the tablets, interesting enough, they are written on two tablets. And the rabbis ask, why two? And they answer, the first five are what are called Bein Adam Lemakom, between man and God. And the second five, Ben Adam lechavero, between man and man. The rabbis tell us a very important principle, that when God gives the Torah, Vaydaber Elokim et kol hadvarim ha'eleh, God said all of these things. Comments the great Rashi, why does it say kol hadvarim, all these things? To tell us that God said all 10 commandments in one, which is impossible for the mouth to articulate and for the ears to hear. Why was it so important that God gives all 10 commandments in one hit? And then, says Rashi, quoting the Medrash, God then repeats each of the commandments by themselves. Says Rashi, the purpose of this Kol HaDvarim, all the words together, is to tell you that it's all part of one package. It is not an choose your own Judaism experience. You are people who say, I can buy into these mitzvot, I don't buy into those mitzvot. No, it is a package deal. Yes, I can understand, thou shalt not murder, and thou shalt not commit sexual immorality, and thou shalt not steal. I get those. Ben Adam lechavero, I understand. The Shabbat story, God's story doesn't really talk to me. No, it's a package deal. It is all inclusive. Now, why is it so important that we should know it's all inclusive? To teach us the point that when it comes to Torah, Torah is setting for us a goal, a vision of what we are supposed to try and achieve. It is not a choose your own adventure. The word mitzvah does not mean a good deed. It means a command. The 10 commandments, Aseret HaDibrot. They are commands from the commander-in-chief. And when we look at these 10 commandments, we see something which is quite phenomenal. There are certain commandments which we will say to ourselves, well, society cannot function without them. For example, take murder. Of course murder is evil. Of course it is bad. How could we? So society cannot tolerate murder. We would not survive as a community. Why does the Torah have to tell us? Why does God have to tell us, thou shalt not murder? The rabbis answer, because if God did not put thou shalt not murder there, you could have a generation that could somehow justify murder. Now you might say to me, that's impossible, that would never happen. So one of the activities I do with my students is I ask them the following question. You're 15 years old, you live in Berlin, Germany. The year is 1932. And you're asked the question by the teacher, what would you say of someone who murders women and children? Would you be able to do that? And of course, every hand would go up and say, no, I would not do that. But yet 10 years later, those same 16-year-olds are now 26 and are perpetrating the greatest crime against humanity. What happened? Within 10 years, thou shalt not murder meant them, but not these guys. It became morally acceptable to murder Jews and others. And thus, if God did not say, thou shalt not murder, as an absolute rule, society will come along and change the parameters, where murder can be justified. Another command, thou shalt not take God's name in vain. What does that mean? Taking God's name in vain does not just mean, oh my God, when I stub my toe or snack a nail on my thumb with a hammer. Taking God's name in vain means using God to justify your actions, as if to say God would approve of what I am doing. Using God's name to justify your actions. That is identity theft or fraud. It is using God to justify your actions. And that, says the Torah, and that, says the Ten Commandments, is unacceptable. So the Ten Commandments sets an incredibly high moral standard for each and every one of us. It is the Torah says, Et kol hadvarim, all these words were said together. It's not a choose your own adventure. It's not choose one that makes sense to you and those who don't make sense to you. It is a package deal. And if you really want to engage, well then, you need to commit yourself to them all. And thus the Jewish people stood at the foot of Mount Sinai and echoed the words, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will seek to understand what it's all about. The Jews accepted the Torah without asking. And thus we became the chosen people. We chose to accept these rules upon ourselves. And it has been a relationship and a love affair that has gone on for 3,500 years. Much to think about. Shabbat Shalom.